Good evening, and how you doing? And welcome to another episode of Just in Case You Missed Sunday's. Before you turn me off, let me just ask you a question. When was the last time you saw something that bothered you, that you knew you had to do something? You couldn't unsee it, you couldn't unhear it, but you knew that it was something that you saw and even bothered you to the point that you said, Lord, if you can use me in any way to be a solution to what I just saw and what I just witnessed, use me. Has anything bothered you recently that you felt like, Lord, if there is something that you can use me to do? And this is tonight, we're going to look at the cry behind the why. The cry behind the why. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, good evening, and we're back. And the question I have for you today: when was the last time something bothered you enough that you said, Lord, use me, send me for it? If there's anything I am able to do, Lord, please send me and let me know. And I'll do my best, Lord, to try to be part of the solution. I got to figure out this lighting thing on this green screen stuff. But everything is a learning process. But I'm here tonight to just ask you a simple question. And I have been writing a book, and I'm getting ready to do a book launch. And people say, well, why did you write that particular book? Why were you talking about financial literacy and reading literacy? And why was that important to you? Well, I want to share with you a little bit of what made me cry and led me to my why I'm in doing that. Many of you have probably heard the story of Nehemiah. And if you look at Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 3, it says, Nehemiah replies to the king, saying, why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and the gates have been destroyed? Have you ever been in a situation like that where you go back to the old neighborhood or you go back to wherever it is you grew up from and you just realize that the area has almost been decimated? It doesn't look the same. And you just sort of say, well, Lord, what happened here? This isn't how I remembered it. This wasn't anything like that. But has it ever been something in your life that you have came to the point where it led you to tears? Nehemiah was led to tears. He put on sackcloth and ashes. He was there. But after he complained, moaned, and groaned about it, he started to do something about it. And that's what I'm asking tonight. How many times, what made you cry? What was the why that made you do something? What made you cry enough that you said, Lord, send me? Another thing, passages of scripture that pricked my heart in this, listen to this. It's found in Luke 10, 25 through 37. And it's a basic story that I'm sure most of us have heard time and time and time again. And it's the story of the Good Samaritan. How many times it was about Jesus told this parable, and he was basically asking, because they're answering a question through a parable. He was saying, the people were asking, who is my neighbor? And he tells this story about a traveler who was beaten, robbed, and left half dead along the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. And while the righteous priest and the Levite passed without helping, a Samaritan, whose people were normally despised by the Jews, stops, bandages his wound, and takes him to an inn to recover. Jesus shares this parable to answer a question: who is my neighbor? And see, when God exposes a broken system to your eyes, he is handing you responsibility and a divine strategy to help. How many times have you seen something that bothered you enough that you asked God for the divine strategy and the responsibility and the accountability to help? And this is why, exactly why I ended up writing this book, uh, that we just went through that. And here's what the thing was. My granddaughter is getting ready to start kindergarten. And last year, I wrote some other children's books, and I had the opportunity to go to a few elementary schools and a few daycares and read to some kids, the books I had wrote. And it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. And, everything was, good. Kids responded well until I went to this one school and I read to some kids, and this kid just wasn't, I don't know, it was just something wasn't right. And I asked the teacher, I go, "What's wrong? What's up with that young man?" And she said, "Well, he's really struggling." And she said, "You really want to see something?" And I saw a small classroom of kids who were really struggling to read, and I felt really bad about it. I mean, I couldn't unsee or unhear what I saw, and they were saying there's a crisis that is going on with these kids that are not able to read at grade level. And as they progress and they can't read at grade level, they fall farther and farther behind to the point they drop out or get into some behavior that's probably not as well because they're just struggling and need somebody to help read them. And she said that a lot of parents don't read to their kids anymore. A lot of kids, and they even have this nonverbal where the kids don't get enough interaction with their parents and family and the community to develop communication skills. And I'm thinking to myself, how does this happen? And this is a twin crisis, and it's something that I believe I could not ignore it. I mean, what I saw, I could not ignore. Every time I do something else, I would think about it, and I didn't want to be like the priest and the Levite, where I'm so concerned about trying to get to church or trying to get to do whatever activity that or function that it does, I just ignore crisis. When I see people hurting or in need, and I may have the resources or the ability or know some resources that could help, we just walk on by. And I just ask the question, what is it that bothers you enough that you said, you know what, Lord, send me. Now, check out these statistics that I saw. Check out these statistics that I saw in this thing here. Wrong thing here. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what is it? Half, look at this. It says here, and you can verify this on Google or whatever you want to do. It says half of the US adults read below a sixth grade level, creating an invisible ceiling for a household's budgets. It only stands to reason if I can't read, then my finances and other things will suffer. And I can only go so far because I can only read at a sixth grade level or below. And it's very hard unless you're with somebody. I've met some people who did not know how to read, but they were married to somebody who did, and they made sure, or they had kids. If you talk to the boss, Bill King, he tells you all the time his mom didn't read, but he read the mail and he did the stuff there, so his mom would be able to be all right with not doing it. And this other thing that came up here that blew my mind. It says here 2/3 of children who can't read by the fourth grade face severe life roadblocks, linking illiteracy directly to, and it's supposed to be instability. Instability. These kids who can't read face roadblocks, and it'll only stand to reason. And I saw this young man, this young kid, these young kids, they were a group of them who couldn't read. And they said that during the COVID time, some of those same kids even got farther behind because they weren't in school. Nobody was helping them learn to read. And now they got to try to catch back up. And some of them will never catch up. And you have to ask yourself. And then I started working at a bank. And then it sort of, another thing clicked to me. You know how hard it is and terrible it is if you are financially illiterate? You imagine a person who can't read and the problems and obstacles they face. People who are financial literate, it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with it. And you don't understand interest rates and you don't understand basic things on saving and different things. And the question is who exposed us to it and where did we learn these things? Most of us will have kids, and most of us can probably remember when our parents said, look both ways across the street, don't touch the hot stove and do these other things. That sticks with you to this day. But why don't we train our kids young enough about a savings account or maintaining money, certain responsibilities that they would have? I mean, everybody kids should do chores because they're in the house and they should contribute. But should you pay them for it? And if you do pay them for it, are they earning it? Are they? And then once they earn it, what are they doing with it? Are you teaching anything? And this is the problem here. It's like financial literacy costs American families billions yearly. We cannot solve money problems without teaching reading skills and financial literacy. And that needs to start as early as possible if we want our kids and our see generations there. And it says that lack is rarely a pure cash story. It's a lack of divine order and aligning with God's economic laws. The Bible talks a lot about money. So those people that say Bible doesn't, Bible talks a lot about money. And it doesn't talk about money in the situation in the way that we think about it. It talks about it more of us moving away from ownership to understanding what stewardship is so that we do and spend our money in a way that's pleasing to God. Because when you do learn biblical principles about your money and your finances, you'll find out you'll move from acting like an owner to a faithful steward. Worry is replaced by God's provision. God will provide and make a way if we all make the choice to be great stewards, not owners, not people that handle money grudgingly or money that are, we do things cheerfully, willfully. When we see there's an opportunity to meet a need, we're just thankful that we had the resources in order to meet the need, not determining other things here. And then, like I said, with the same hand you give is the same hand you receive. And God looks at that. And we need to understand when we have that, God has a system designed so provision flows predictably when we submit our resources to his governance. Flows predictably. You have resources abundant. There's not the stress. There's not, can I pay this or can I do this or whatever else? Because you become a good steward and you know what and why you are doing certain things. And today we just want to look at some of those things that we need to make sure that we're shifting from a system of that. And the thing that I did is I decided to write a book. And this book will be coming out called The Abundant Life. It'll be coming out September 7th. And the thing that pricked my heart when I think about it, and I hope this question makes you think if you're listening to this, because I think it's a question that I had to ask myself, and I hope you ask. If the next three generations were financially literate as you are, would you be happy? Would you be proud to pass on your financial habits and behaviors to your kids, to your grandkids, and your grandkids, so that they live in the same way and follow the same things? Now, if you've worked it out and you got it, I think that's an awesome thing. But do your kids actually learn and embrace principles that they can pass on to your grandkids and their grandkids? Imagine what that would look like. And that's part of the book I wrote called The Abundant Life, coming out in September 7th. You can learn more about it if you go to my website at rodneynichols.com and learn more about this literacy thing. These books will be available at Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes and Nobles. And over the next Few weeks, I'm going to be talking about just these things about the financial literacy piece. See, tonight we're talking about the cry behind the why. Thursday, I'm sure a lot of us ask this question: is this it? For some of us, is it just going to work? And the reason I chose September 7th, Labor Day, we go to work 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. Sometimes come home, eat, wash some clothes, maybe take care of the kids, some lessons, whatever else. Get ready to bed, get up again the next morning, whatever else. Get a paycheck, pay it all off the bills, start it over and over and over and over. And the question I'm going to ask is this it? Was this the way it was meant to be? Or was this when God says that we're supposed to have life and life more abundantly? What did that mean? So the question I'm asking on Thursday, if you come back, is this it? Are you at a point where you would like to know, is there more to this than what would I have? Should I learn some different things that I can pass on to my kids? Do I talk to my kids about financial things and financial? And next week we're going to look at the whole point of start them early, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they grow older, they shall not depart. And this is a 5 book series. There's The Abundant Life, which is an adult book, and there's 4 children's books. And next week we're going to look at The Froggy Bank, Czar's Wise Owl Adventures. And this book is about how do we teach our kids financial literacy. It's a fictitious story about a grandfather and his granddaughter. And his granddaughter was saving money in a bank, and he said, "You know what? You need to learn how to save." So he took her to the local credit union and opened up her savings account and sits with her bank statement and says, "This is what you have. This is the allowance you earn for reading and doing creative things." And then she gets to look, and if she does her reading and stuff, she made the appropriate amount. There's a couple of times you get the book, she's going to find out that she didn't decide to read. And what does that happen? Do we teach our kids consequences? That what happens when you don't do what you say you're going to do and you're not engaged? You got to start them off early. I didn't really get a bank account. And I had a paper route, and I had probably till almost ninth grade, ninth, 10th grade. I got well, between that, so it had to be like ninth to 10th grade. I got a real job working at a home, a retirement home for nuns and priests as a dishwasher. And you get your paycheck, you take it over to, at that time I think it was called Hinky Dinky. I think that's what it was called. Some people might know it as Chubbs. And you go there and you give them a percentage or whatever, $1 or 2, and they would cash your check or whatever else, and then you'd have that money in your pocket. And I think, unfortunately, we should not teach our kids to just get money in their pocket and go spend it. And you're going to learn in that there's spend some, save some, invest some, and give some. There should be definite purposes when we get our money. Does your money have a purpose? Do you rarely pay yourself, or do you make sure that you're saving some, put some investment, and you got to spend some, and you got to learn to give some. And then the other book we're going to look at that's written in this series is Czar's Lemonade Stand. Do we teach our kids anything early about entrepreneurship? Huh? Do we say that investment jar that they had when they were saving, that they could go take part of that money in the savings, purchase the lemons, the sugar, whatever else, and learn to sell something and learn about location. And the unique thing about each of these books, there's a vocabulary list in there. Because not only do I want people, hopefully families, to read to their kids, but I also hope that the parents learn some things, or grandparents learn some things, or the aunt or uncle that may read, or some of those things, and say, you know what, I'm reading this, but I think I can do that, because there's 4 books. There's a book on savings and open up a bank account. There's another book on entrepreneurship. There's a book called Zara Shares the World, excuse me, that will be a portion that talks about stocks and investment. If with the same kids that we talk to about um, being careful how they walk across the street, are the same kids that we could do that, and we could talk to them about stocks and those important things. It's not just a good thing to wear Nikes, own some shares of Nikes or whatever the things that you're and how to invest and whatever to invest. And these books also show the downside of something. You could have a great day as an entrepreneur, and then some people don't come, and you may have to figure out things like location and changing your plan a little bit, so therefore you can make a profit in those things. But my question is that do we talk to them about it? Because I asked the question again: if the next three generations were financially literate as you are, would you be happy? And that was part of my cry because I wasn't happy. I wasn't. It's in the book I wrote, and my kids know this, and my wife know this. I've been telling them that forever that I don't want them to be financially as stupid as me and my wife. I mean, some of the stuff didn't know no better, and some stuff did know and still did what you wanted to. And but when you really know and you really understand, you really know that you have to do something different. As Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you got to do better. And I'm hoping that this provides the tools and the resources to start impacting our journey. Because the thing that we have to understand, the cycle stops now. It should stop with me. It should stop with you. And let the legacy begin. And the question is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave, not only for your children, but your children's children and your children's children, and on down the line? The United States just celebrated 250 years. And we know some folks in that 250 years had to, as they say, had a much harder road to hoe, as they, as I heard that saying went once or twice. And but by the grace of God, a lot of us are sitting here doing things that maybe our ancestors never, because they put the time in, the sacrifice in, and took their pennies, nickels, and dimes together and built schools and uh, hospitals and done different things. And in that time, I don't know if our generation can look back and say how many hospitals, schools, um, all those things. And we have way more resources than they had, made way more money. And the next generation, we look at what they make, but we also need to look at what they have to spend. I was in doing different things in the youth and colleges, and you hear about kids that have $100,000 in student loans. $100,000 in student loans, and we will be paying those kind of student loans off the rest of their life. And if we're honest, none of us had to pay that kind of money to go to school. And now we see a situation where these kids are doing that. My daughter's two-bedroom apartment, what she pays in rent in Kansas City is more, three times the amount that I think, well, I know it is, three times the amount me and my wife paid for our first house. How does a person get $100,000 student loan? And most people can't go to the bank or someplace and get a $50,000 loan to set up a business or something. And they say, well, that's not guaranteed. A college education is not guaranteed. Just because you spend $100,000, and we have these certain things where state of Nebraska is fighting with the city of Omaha because the city of Omaha said, in this city, $15 an hour does not a living wage. It's not a living wage. They're building new apartments and homes and stuff right now that are $1,000 a month. Do the math. You have to make $20 or better to afford a $1,000 to $1,300 rent or mortgage note. Because they say if you go to the HUD association, they say that it's supposed to be 30% your mortgage, your rent, your insurance, and your utilities should not be more than 30% of your final paycheck. And they're arguing and telling folks, well, $15, you should do it 30. This is what I'm saying about financial literacy. We need to understand these things. These are things I didn't. I decided I wanted to research it and I wanted to write a book about it because I couldn't be the Samaritan guy that sees the kid struggling in the school that couldn't read. I couldn't be uh, a man of faith and say some of the daycare providers were talking about how some of the families were struggling. And before you say anything, this is not just a black, white, Chinese. There are a lot of folks that are struggling right now to just make ends meet. And I'm just saying it's a point in time. Does it bother any of us enough to say, maybe we do something different? And for me, this is where I believe God came into me and said, hey, Rodney, I think you can do something about it. And I was like, what it is, Lord, what it is. And he said, address not just the thing, get families back to like when you was coming up and before, where we didn't have a a desk and basement and all that stuff. We had a kitchen table. My mom would say, y'all come in and get your lesson. And I would see my mom at that same kitchen table looking at the bills with her checkbook, writing out checks for whatever else. She didn't let us see them. But these are the kind of things we got to get back to if we want to see generations to come better. Because if you can't answer that question, if you answered that question and you looked in the mirror as I looked in the mirror and said, I'm going to pass down the same foolish financial behavior, buffoonery, whatever you want to talk about, to the next 2, 3 generations, expect them to do more when I know the cost of everything is going up higher and higher. And if they're making more money, some of them are making, she makes great money. But if you've got thousands of dollars in student loan and you're making $500, $600, $700 a month payment in student loans, and you pay rent, and you pay for a car note, you pay for insurance, this is the problem. And there is a solution, and God has those solutions if we're willing to listen. It says, if my people who are called by my name will turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, I will heal. Debt is almost, unrealistic, ungodly debt is a sin and it's wicked and it takes people away from God. It takes people away from their families. And if we don't come together and say, you know what, Lord, I made a bunch of financial mistakes and I've done that. And somehow or another, Lord, you've kept me. You figured out some way to keep a roof over my head, food on our table, clothes on our back. But it wasn't because I didn't make a whole bunch of dumb decisions along the way. There was a voice, Lord, that you said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And you told the Lord, well, Lord, you ain't me. And you did it anyway. And then you got it, you did it, and then you look back and go, Lord, why did I do that? Why didn't I just listen, Lord? So many things come down in our life because we don't choose to listen. And maybe you're listening to me tonight, maybe you're not. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I believe the Lord led me to do. To write these books, share them, to write them the best I can, try to do the best I can to get them published. And I realized through this journey to get them published, every obstacle or problem that has happened or whatever else, God's found a way for the money or people or resources to keep going. And another reason behind the cry behind my why, I had a good friend die last year. It'll be come up a year in October. And my last conversation with her, I promised her I would finish these books. I would do my best. It just I wasn't sure what the books was going to be. And when I thought about those kids and whatever else, I said, Lord, if I can do that, if I can help in some situation in that way, that's what I'm going to do. Another person that passed shortly after she did was this associate minister in our church, associate pastor. His name was Bishop Prim. And I remember him telling me, and this is what I don't understand. These were these last conversations I had with these people before they died. And he said, Rodney, I said, Bishop Prim, it just seems hard. I mean, I don't have this. And he said, but I know. And he said to me, he said, you can love, he said, love your pastor, love this church, but don't love either one of them more than God. If God is calling you to do something, then you need to make every effort to do your best that you can for what you heard from the Lord and make sure you do your part. And that's why I asked the question earlier, just like a Nehemiah, just like the Good Samaritan, what need is God put in front of you that you said, Lord, I can't unsee this. I can't unhear it. Lord, Lord, use me. Because when God, like I asked you earlier, when God exposes a broken system to your eyes, he is handing you a responsibility and a divine strategy to help. I believe that wholeheartedly. Because if he had not of, and I just would have said, you know what, Lord, I think this is, who's over the school board now? I think that's their problem. They need to figure something out, get these kids reading up. But it's the teacher, man. Lord, I raised my kids. Why? Thank God they were able to get through elementary, junior high, high school, both graduate college, and did all right. And I'm thinking, Lord, I done did my part. No, you can't say you did your part. You just saw that little boy struggling, them kids struggling in that class, and you sitting there, big old grown man, getting out to the car in tears because you just thought, man, look at that kid struggling. And you hurt, and you just gonna keep on going. You're gonna keep going back, sitting up in church, preaching, teaching, working on the media team, ushering, whatever you may doing, greeting, singing in the choir, all these other things. That's great, but I don't want to be like that preacher who saw a man struggling and walked on the other side of the thing. I don't want to be a person who goes to church, and maybe you're one of those people that serve. You sing, you music direct, you play keyboards or organ, drums, work on the media team, whatever else you do. And you see somebody struggling and hurting, and you got to be like, oh, I got to get to church. It's almost 11 o'clock. I'm supposed to be there at 10:30. Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? So tonight, I just want to ask you again, when was the last time you cried? When was the last time you hurt and you saw something? You couldn't unsee it, you couldn't unhear it, and the Lord was literally twisting your arm and telling you you were the right person to do something about it. And did you trust the Lord and do whatever that was, and allow Him to use you in a way? And it's not it's a lonely feat. Your family won't understand. Your church family won't understand because you're going to be different when God puts something along those lines. People going to be saying, "Well, he changed. He don't, no." I tell you what does change. Your focus changes. Your priorities change because God's work becomes the priority. It's no longer about uh you, this, that, and the other. You start looking at the things that if this is important to God, it becomes important to you. And you start to see some things that just go on over and over, year after year. And you just go, Lord, what are we doing? I mean, it doesn't seem like it doesn't change because we don't want to change. We enjoy our little comfort zones. We enjoy the thing because it would have been easy enough for the Good Samaritan to just keep walking by, just like the priest and the Levite did. It would have been just as easy for him to say, I ain't helping that dude on the side of the road. Nehemiah was living like a fat rat in the cheese factory. He was a cupbearer, no doubt, but hey, as long as the king didn't get poisoned, he was in good shape. And he could have lived and worked that job for a long time. And he decided, I can't handle seeing my hometown in ruins. I, I need to do something. I think I got the resources and the brains and the smarts. And I believe God will give me the divine strategy and plan and the favor to see it through because, Lord, I can't unsee or unhear what I heard about how Jerusalem is. Lord, I can't unsee or unhear that man that was beat up on the side of the road. And Lord, I can't unsee and not hear what I saw those kids struggling like they were to read. And I couldn't help but see some of those families who were struggling. I don't know about nobody else, but I remember what it was like to be in that line to get that cheese and powdered eggs and all that stuff, standing there to get those kind of things. I was thinking about laughing. We had to get our air conditioning replaced, and Lord, I thank for the Gordon's Heating and Plumbing. I just short shout out if you need somebody to give you a fair deal and a fair price. I believe Gordon's been in North Alabama a long time, and they've helped out my grandma, my mom, and helping out us today. I think he was with his grandson or something, was working with him to putting in the air condition. And we think about our lives, and we sitting up in air condition watching cable TV, and there's people that are struggling to put food on the table and wondering if the lights is going to stay on and whatever else. And it's not because they want to be that way. Maybe they just didn't know, and that's why I am writing the Abundant Life book series. It's coming out in September. I hope you will check it out. You know, want to learn more? Go out to rodneynichols.com, RODNEYNICHOLS.com, and learn more about um, the cry behind the why and see the other statistics that just blew me away. That I just said, Lord, I could not just sit there and not try. I'm not saying this is going to change. There's some other things that Lord has placed in my heart to work on. And another great thing that has happened a while back, we had the 24 hours of prayer, where churches from different denominations came together and prayed for 24 hours. And I was there for the whole 24 hours. And I heard the prayers of each of the people for the city of Omaha and for our kids. And they were talking about things that will impact generations to come. And I believe the church is ready for the work ahead. And yes, it's Sam Cooke. I believe change is gonna come. I believe change is going to come. Well, I hope tonight you got something from this tonight. Because like I said, this is, God's system is designed so we don't have to worry and struggle or this, that, and the other, because you know got to make sure that those things go. And big shout out to Lavanya Goodwin, who her and some of the members of the city council said we can't survive on $15 an hour. I mean, I know Nebraska is a big agriculture, I think I was pronouncing that, state. There's only like cities like maybe Omaha and Lincoln, in the side of Nebraska, but a lot of it's just rural country. But if you ever go to Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin, there's a lot of rural areas in there, but Ohio has a Cleveland, a Columbus, a Dayton, and I'm sure there's others. And the reason Nebraska and Iowa sometimes struggle because they have Omaha and Lincoln. I think Des Moines, Iowa. I don't know if there's other places, but we may have to look at trying to make some of these other rural areas tourist attraction areas or something that will bring in to help, relieve some of the property taxes and some of those things. And these are kind of things that we need to talk about in the next few weeks. Um, all the podcast episodes is going to look at a various aspect of financial literacy. And I'm going to cover some of the things from the book. Some of the book, we're going to talk about some of the characters in the book because I didn't want to write just a book that was just, step one, step two, do this, do that. No, I enjoy reading, but I enjoy the storytelling of reading. I enjoy watching programs or, whatever it has that tells stories and backstories of some things. And sometimes you see yourself in those very stories. And those are the kind that sometimes we look at and see what they did and say that, Lord, I can do that same thing. So I'm just asking you today to ask that question before the next episode. Um, if the next three generations were financially literate as you are, would you be happy? And do you want more out of life? Do you feel that this is it? Maybe you feel like, Lord, this is all it is. Maybe you unfortunately moved to the point where you just sit back and say, it is what it is. Ain't nothing going to change. Well, probably won't. If you don't change, nothing will change. And if you keep thinking that you're going to do the same things over and over and expect some kind of different results, well, those of you who have probably had just a few vocabulary lessons know that that's the textbook definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over and expecting a different outcome. No change. Is this it? And then we're going to look at the simple fact we want generations to come. We got to be willing to start them off early and teaching them some of the different things that maybe we weren't taught. Maybe we didn't have parents that sat down and said, hey, this is what you need to do with your money. This is how you need to save. You need to make sure you're putting a little bit away because a rainy day will come. A rainy day will come. And sometimes they rain multiple days. And so you need to make sure that you're prepared in some way. Well, again, tonight, I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I also want to send my condolences and prayers out. One to Pastor Jonathan Chapman. His father passed, I think this past Sunday or Saturday. So definitely want to send out my condolences out to the Chapman family and the Church on Purpose family because Jonathan's dad was also an associate pastor at the church. And I was hoping to get a chance to hear him preach because I saw his name was on their church is getting ready to have I think it's their 10-year anniversary. And I saw Pastor Chapman's dad was on the flyer is one that was going to preach during that. So I never got a chance to meet him, but his son is such a strong man, and I don't believe apples fall too far from the tree. You know, so I think his dad and mom did a great job of raising a fine young man. And want to send my condolences and prayers out to um, Pastor Kenneth Allen and his wife, Miss Sandra. Um, Pastor Allen was a great mentor and friend to me. He was one of the men um, that encouraged me. One night I was doing this podcast and I was just tired. I just said, and he was the one pastor I called and I said, Pastor Allen, I started this. I want to finish it, but I'm just tired. And he said, Miss Nichols, you know, when you called me, I was going to help you. And the interesting thing is because if you knew Pastor Allen, he was alum of Texas University, and they were playing a football bowl game that night. And he said, "You know, Texas is playing, but I'll be on." And he came on the podcast and shared his wisdom, and he helped. And what I always found interesting about Pastor Allen, anytime something pricked my heart, and I was doing a men's conference or a workshop last year. I think I told him I wanted to do a conference on workshop on prayer. and I couldn't find any other church that would work with me on it. And he said, "Well, I will." And he opened his doors, and I really feel bad that he wanted to, last couple times I saw him, he was talking about when he was going to do that. He wanted me to come back, and we wanted to do the prayer conference because he said he felt it was still very needed. And I feel bad that I didn't get back with him because I started writing books and doing some other things I was working on, and I didn't. And every time I saw him, I said, I'm gonna get with you, Pastor Allen." And um, there was a commitment academy, and there was some problem with some scheduling, and these kids wouldn't be able to. I called Pastor Allen. I said, "Hey, if you could, let me speak with," and I showed him what it was and what we were doing, and he said, "We're in." And one of the things that I will, there's some things that I call what I'm going to take to my nursing home memories of people that said something to me that really stuck. My One of the things, I was a blind lady that my aunt used to provide caregiving for, and I had to go pick up my aunt. I go pick up my aunt, I go talk to the lady, or I go get the groceries, and she'd always say, "Oh, me, Mr. Personality," and I'm like, "I don't have a person." And she was blind. She said, I have to be able to see to know that do that." And one of the things Pastor Allen said to me one day, he said, "Brother Nichols, as long as I've known you, I've never seen you not give your best towards anything that you believe that God was telling you to do." And he said, "Every workshop, when you were in New Era or you were doing whatever else, your heart says you wanted to give your best. So anytime I can support you or help you, I'm going to do that." And he did. And he did. I mean, I I don't know. He's the one that introduced me to my current pastor. He said, I think you would really get along with Pastor Stan Roan." And he said, "Let me, whatever else." And he made the introduction, and that. And I'm just saying, he was just a special guy. And when you look at somebody's pastoral ministry, I look at the leaders that came under Pastor Allen, and and I think of Reverend McCoy, Reverend Nelson, Reverend Hawthorne, Reverend Gould. Um, I think Reverend Laster was under him for a while, and he had true impact on people. I can honestly say he had true impact on my life, and I'm thankful. Once again, I think about a few weeks ago, Deacon Leon Welch passed away, and God found a way. These guys show favor on somebody that really didn't deserve or warrant any favor, because I ain't nobody and still nobody, still ain't nobody. But for whatever reason, Lord placed it on their heart to share their wisdom and help me be a better man, or the best man I could be. And I have to say that these people like Pastor Allen and Deacon Welch, and there are others, and women too. I was thinking about Sister Velma Sanders, who, when I told her I was going to be a minister, blah blah blah, she said, "Don't put your gifts to just sit in a pulpit or somewhere and read a few scriptures and think that you've done something." And I was thinking, why would she say that? And I look back and I say, yeah, that's a lot of wisdom by what she said. And be thankful for the people that God places in your life that invest in you. Well, with that being said, I just want to again thank you all for chiming in tonight. I hope that you will share, like, subscribe. Those things, say those things, but those things are kind of important because um, that's how this Facebook and these YouTubes and these things, they they determine if something's important by the fact that, is anybody watching? Is anybody commenting? Is anybody subscribing because they want to see the episode? They want to see what else you may or may be doing. And I'm just saying, it's important that we put ourselves in those positions and support whether it's me or somebody else that's a great creator, a great content creator, and I'm glad everybody supported him because he is as advertised. I had a chance to actually hear him preach for the first time a while back, and the new pastor of Salem Baptist Church, Reverend, I think his name is Jarvis Ellis. He's something special. So, get a chance to check out his podcast, and Reverend Charles Nelson that does a podcast. Well, anyway, I guess I've yacked up enough, and I want to make sure respectful of your time and what's going on. So once again, I want to thank you for watching another episode of Just in Case You Missed Sunday School. I want to make sure that if you take that off of here, I don't know how it's still on here, but if you are, just in case you miss Sunday School or Faith, Family, and Wisdom, Finance, and Leadership, just remember the cycle stops here and the legacy starts now. Stay safe, stay blessed, and always continue to trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. Good night.
Thank you for joining us on Just in Case You Missed Sunday School Bible Study Podcast. Please like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share with friends and family. For coaching, books, and resources, visit rodneynichols.com. See you next week.